Hey everyone, I hope you all are doing well. Before I will start talking about this week's daily race here at Monza with the Group 3 cars, I would like to wish you all Happy New Year and hopefully all of you will be able to achieve your goals and your ambitions this year as well. For this race here I decided to choose to drive the Ferrari 458 GT3 because it's pretty much Monza, and if you're watching Formula One, you pretty much have the vibe like Forza Ferrari, right? And I decided to give it a go to also see how the Ferrari compares against the other cars here, such as the Genesis, the GTR, the Corvette, and also the Viper, I believe. And here I almost got taken out by Benjamin, but as you were also able to see from the turn 1 action there was a little bit of carnage. It's like a little bit of the typical turn 1, like what is it, lap 1, turn 1 at Monza, where you always have to be careful by not being involved in any incidents, right? So it was a little bit difficult because I tried to brake a little bit earlier there and also tried to be careful, but I was still involved in some incidents, unfortunately. As for the strategy here, the tire wear multiplier as well as the fuel consumption multiplier has been set to ×1. So you don't really have to save fuel, but you also don't really have to save your tires as well. So the only thing which is like really important for this race here is the mandatory pit stop, where you have to pit at least one time in this race. So I also decided to go into the pits this lap here because as you don't really have to, as you neither have to save fuel nor your tires, it pretty much gives you the ability to decide at which lap you would like to pit in order to complete your mandatory pit stop requirement. But obviously it also depends on the situation you're in that time, right? So for example, if you have like clean air, there are like two possibilities what you can do in here, which is like just by either staying out so that you can try to set like some really quick and consistent lap times, or if you are with another fast driver together, then you can also try to work together in the end, because the slipstream for this race here is also quite powerful, as it's been another custom slipstream setting here, which is not really too bad because the dirty air has been reduced. But I also feel like the slipstream strength towards the end of the straight line is maybe a little bit too much. But then once again, it might also be due to the differences of the cars here, like of the cars being used for this race here. Because the Genesis has like really good acceleration, it also has like really good top speed. But then the car I used here, the Ferrari, but before I talk that, firstly, Killer also let me buy here, which I would like to say thank you. Because I almost got confused there, because I wanted to stay behind of him going into Ascari, but then he decided to use his indicators there, but I was like, oh okay, so he wants to let me buy. So I decided to overtake him here quickly. But what I wanted to say earlier was, but with the Ferrari, it has like good acceleration out of the low speed sections. It also has like really good traction, but unfortunately it kind of lacks the top speed for the circuit, and it also struggles a little bit carrying a lot of speed through the Ascari, but by also not really losing the rear stability of the car, because the car through Ascari, it really wanted to lose the rear sometimes, so that's why I always had to lift a little bit from the throttle so that I could keep the car under control, unfortunately. But talking about the strategy once again, like the second possibility was, if you have another fast driver, then you could easily work together because of the slipstream being a bit powerful here. And this way you would be able to drive lap times way below the 48, which would be like around mid 47s, even to low 47s. I think even yesterday when I did some races there, I was like working together with two other drivers, and we also managed to achieve lap times which were like even 46.9, which is like pretty insane actually, because 46.9 is pretty much like a top 10 time trial lap from the leaderboard. So if you're able to do like even low 47s, that's like pretty good, right? But as you can see it here, I decided to go into the pits at the end of lap 1 because I didn't want to get stuck behind of the other drivers in front of me. Because obviously being faster than the other drivers is one thing, but trying to overtake them is another one, right? So I decided not to take the risk by going for another lap, trying to use the slipstream so that they could pull me along. And instead I went into the pit so that I could try to undercut them potentially, but moreover try not to be involved in any troubles, right? So here I was setting like consistently 48.1s, which I was kind of surprised by it because you are about to see me doing 48.1s for like 4 laps consecutively, and usually the best lap time I was able to do with the Ferrari without using the slipstream was a 47.8, like almost a 0.9. But that was like a really good lap. But if you want to be consistent around this track, then obviously your lap times are going to be a bit slower, but nevertheless your lap times should still be competitive, relatively speaking. So when I was doing those 48.1s, I was actually quite satisfied with it, because you have to nail the entry into turn 1, which is a bit difficult, but then clipping the curb on the following left hand side, like for the exit out of turn 2, that was also a bit difficult, because on that corner the car liked to, how do you say that, like it liked to move a little bit too much there, right, with the weight transfer. But then also going onto the throttle quite immediately for having the best exit out of possible was needed, because I had to use the advantage of the Ferrari's traction compared to the other FR cars in order to gain time to them. So, and then that was the first thing. The second part, which was like really difficult to nail consistently, was the second chicane. So once you finish sector 1 and you're about to start sector 2, there's like another chicane coming up, right? If I'm not mistaken, there must be turn 4 and 5, I believe. But unfortunately, during that chicane, you have to cut and abuse the sausage curb as much as possible. But if you abuse it ever so slightly, like a little bit too much, then you will get a track limit penalty, and it also depends on which corner you cut the curb, or like the sausage curb a bit too much, and also by how much you cut it. So you can either get like a 0.5 second penalty or like a 1 second time penalty there. Like from my experience, if you cut the last curb, like the right hander, a little bit too much, then you will always get a 1 second time penalty, unfortunately. And then for here, for this corner exit here, I also had to try and use the inside curb as much as possible so that I could also flow it as soon as possible as well. But through Ascari it was a bit difficult. Like the entry was fine, it's just that through this right section here you were able to see that I had to lift a little bit, because if I hadn't done that, then the car would have easily lost the rear, unfortunately. So it was always a bit difficult to nail these kind of corners consistently all the time. As for this corner here, I also decided not to shift down too much and too quickly, so that I could keep the rear under control, so that I could also have a much more stable entry into what is it called? It's not called Parabolica anymore, is it? Like, you know, like the last corner. But you were also able to see that once again another 48.1, which I was quite surprised by it. But then at the same time, the leaders, they also decided to fight against each other a bit too much, which I desperately needed, because as you can see it here from the gap, it's like around 17 seconds right now, 17.5 seconds. And with the race setting for this race here, obviously you have to go into the pits, but because of the multiply being set so low, like by times 1, and that all of us have to use the hard tire compound anyway, and only the hard tire compound was required in the end. Or not really required, but we were only able to use the hard tire compound for this race here. You were not really now wait, let me rephrase it differently. Sorry, like you didn't really have to save your fuel as well as your tires for this race. Even if your car was like quite bad, either on fuel consumption or even on saving tires, even on those cars, you didn't really need to save them, because if you have to use the hard tire compound on a track like this, where the multiplier has been set to times 1, you can easily go flat out, right? But because of that, you didn't have to change your tires while going into the pits. So because of that, I think you only lose like around 14-ish seconds, like 13 to 14 seconds. So my net gap I was having to the leaders was like around 3 seconds, but I had to try and still try to drive quite well here, because I wanted to try and close the gap down to the leaders as much as possible, but at the same time I also hope that they would fight against each other a lot, or they would also maybe get some penalties in the end, so that I could also have a chance to fight for the win towards the end of the race. Because you were able to see like so many other drivers, especially those ones starting from the front, that they decided to pit towards the end of the race, like around lap 8, towards the end of lap 8 or lap 9, because that's pretty much the safer option here. Because if you're starting from the front, obviously you don't want to be involved with lots of cars, or like be involved with lots of battles, because you will like to try and go with your own pace in the end. But if you also have like other fast drivers starting right behind of you, obviously at the beginning of the race you will like to try and work together in order not to lose a lot of time, but instead even gaining time compared to the other drivers, so that you can try to fight for the win against, or like between against each other towards the end of the race. But in my case here, I was also starting to have a little bit of slipstream from the driver in front of me, and because of that I was finally able to get 47 lap times, which I also needed at this point. But if you also have like slipstream, especially down to turn 1, you also have to try and be careful not to overshoot it instead, because you can easily miss your braking point, especially when all of us had to use the hard tire compound for this race. So if you miss your braking point ever so slightly, then you're going to miss the apex into turn 1 by a lot. So that's something which all of us have to be careful with, especially for this corner here as well, because it's kind of easy to miss the braking point into the chicane as well. But here I was kind of hoping that, hey, please let's try to work together, because from my point of view I didn't want to lose a lot of time. But at the exit of this corner here, I think he wanted to let me by, but unfortunately I didn't have the acceleration needed, like from around 160 or let's say 180 kilometers per hour to overtake him fully. But here I was able to have a slipstream once again, and also overtake him through Ascari. But it was also quite clean, and fair enough, he also gave me the space and didn't wanna fight for the position, which I was also grateful for. And I think with our split time here we were also able to get another 47 lap time, which would be quite good. And yeah, now some of the other drivers in front of me, they also decided to go into the pits. I think they were also hoping for maybe doing an undercut towards the other drivers in front of them, or mostly the leaders. And here I was also getting bump drafted by the driver behind of me, which I was also grateful for. And yeah, because some of the other drivers, obviously it's a daily race, it's not really that important, and all of us, we want to try and enjoy ourselves here, right, by driving cleanly against each other. But some of them, yeah, which I didn't really understand by doing some daily races yesterday, where like the leaders were just right in front of us. It wasn't even lap 9 or 10, it was pretty much like at the beginning of the race, but they still tried to defend for the position. But I was like, why do you want to do that, as the leader was just right in front of us? Because if we could maybe work together, then that would be quite beneficial for yourself as well, right? But yeah, I think this is just my thinking here, but nevertheless, it's just a daily race, and I think all of us, we just want to have fun. So I wasn't even mad about it, but I was just wondering why you would do that. But anyway, here we are approaching towards the end of lap 9, and as you can also see, the gap I was having to the leaders, it was like below 15 seconds. So I wasn't really quite sure at this point if I would be able to fight for the victory, because I didn't really know how much time you would lose while going into the pits, because I never really paid attention to the gap, or like to the time needed. So, but as you can see here, we're starting lap time, the final lap here. The drivers from the leader group, they also rejoined the track, so I tried to go around the outside there, but then the guy in P3, he also managed to defend his position quite nicely. And here I was hoping to have the better acceleration, which I had, but unfortunately he had the slipstream, so he was able to get like the better run out of me, so I had to try to get his slipstream once again, and also try to overtake him through here. Are we going to manage to do it? Yes, we are. And then through this section here, I was like, please, Elias Popcorn, please do some mistakes. But no, fair enough. It was like really nice, because like top 5, you know, like top 5 in this race. Yeah, like what is it? Sorry, let me rephrase that one once again as well. Like there were 4 different cars within the top 5, which was like really cool to see. Like Popcorn using the Viper, Elias using the Genesis, I was using the Ferrari, and then the 2 drivers behind of me were using the GTR. And here I was also trying to have a better exit here, but yeah, man, the GTR was having a really good exit here. I think he wanted to go to the inside again, but as I already parked my car in the inside, he kind of bumped into me, which helped me to have the run here. I tried to go around the outside, which was not possible, but here he left the door a little bit open, so I was like hoping to get like the better run than him, but yeah, unfortunately it was impossible. But in the end, there was a really nice battle here, and you can also see it here from the replay cam, which was like really awesome. Like, yeah, I really enjoyed doing this daily race here. I think it might be better than the one we had last week, like the group 4 at Catalonia. But let's see. I mean, after this race here, I also intend to upload some other videos here instead. As for the Race of Champions, I also managed to acquire the what is it? My POV from that race. So I also intend to upload that pretty soonly. Especially as I also managed to have like a better headset now, which I hope is better compared to the one I was using before. Like the one I was using before, yeah, can't be even referred to as a headset. It's pretty much like an earphone for the smartphones. But now I'm using like a headset with a microphone. But I hope the quality has been improved. If not, then please let me know, so that I can maybe still search for a better one for the future. But yeah, from my side, I would like to wish you all once again a happy new year. Have a nice day. From my side, I would like to upload some more videos from this race here with some other cars being used. so watch out for that. But nevertheless, yes, have a good one, guys. See you on the next video. Cheers!